The story begins in a world far beyond the imagination of ordinary people like us. In this world, humans lived alongside dangerous and savage creatures with whom the thought of coexistence seemed impossible. There was a desert here, at the center of which stood a mysterious tower surrounded by dark clouds and lightning at all times. We then see a ship, led by a man named Admiral, crossing the desert and heading toward this tower. Suddenly, they are attacked by a monstrous creature called Diablo. As the beast charged toward the ship with its massive body, aiming to overturn it, Admiral tried to steer the ship away. His maneuver succeeded, but in the chaos, while trying to save Handler from falling off the ship, a boy named Hunter fell off instead and was left behind. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Natalie Artines was on a mission with her security team to locate another team of soldiers. Their only clue was the team's last SOS message. Along the way, they found tire marks that abruptly stopped, as if the vehicle had vanished into thin air. Nearby, they noticed some peculiar stones with cryptic markings. Suddenly, a massive storm appeared on the horizon, rapidly approaching them. The team quickly got into their vehicles to flee, but lightning from the storm illuminated the strange stones. The storm was so powerful that it soon caught up to them, pulling them into a portal. Their vehicles were violently tossed around by the whirlwind before crashing to the ground. When they emerged, they found that the storm had passed, now hovering over some cliffs not marked on their map. Looking around, they saw several sand dunes, but according to their map, the dunes were supposed to be 20 kilometers away. To make matters worse, all their electronic devices stopped working. Using the sun to determine direction, they decided to head back. Suddenly, X spotted something. Upon closer inspection, they discovered the missing team's vehicles alongside charred corpses. There were also broken glass pieces and empty bullet shells, indicating that the fallen soldiers had tried to defend themselves. However, whoever or whatever had attacked them left no tracks in the sand. Puzzled, the team set out in their vehicles once more, unaware that Hunter was observing them through his binoculars. Eventually, the team stopped again as they came across a sight they had never seen before, the skeleton of a massive creature, far larger than any dinosaur. Just then, Hunter fired an arrow at them. In response, the soldiers began firing heavily in his direction. However, Captain Artines caught the arrow and ordered everyone to stop, realizing that the arrow was made of chalk. It was a warning that danger was near. Suddenly, Diablo emerged from the sand, forcing the team to flee in their vehicles once again. They attacked the beast with every weapon they had, but nothing seemed to harm Diablo. Finally, it rammed into one of their vehicles. The story continues with chaos and tragedy. The vehicle flipped over multiple times, leading to X's instant death. Meanwhile, a soldier named Steeler managed to escape from becoming Diablo's prey by jumping into another vehicle. However, Diablo mercilessly overturned this vehicle too, trapping Steeler in its jaws. Before his death, Steeler attacked the monster with several grenades, but they caused minimal damage. This, however, provided the rest of the team a chance to hide among the rocks. From a distance, Hunter attacked Diablo with an arrow to distract it, giving the soldiers an opportunity to retreat into a cave. Since the cave was too small for Diablo to enter, the monster temporarily gave up the chase. Trapped in this dire situation, Dash was panicking, but Captain Artines took charge and reassured everyone, declaring they would fulfill their duty and make it out alive. At that moment, a spider-like creature named Nursel suddenly grabbed Artines in its claws, injecting her with venom before throwing her to the ground and fleeing. The soldiers fired at the creature, while Marshall and Lincoln attempted to revive Artines with CPR. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain. Dash urged everyone to flee as it was nighttime, and more Nursels were likely to attack. Believing Artines was dead, Lincoln, Marshall, and Dash ran toward the cave. Meanwhile, from a distant hilltop, Hunter was fighting off Nursels with his arrows. However, as another creature charged toward him, he was forced to retreat. Back in the desert, Dash fell while running, causing her teammates to stop. Taking advantage of this, a creature seized Marshall and carried him away. Suddenly, Artines regained consciousness, hearing the screams of her team, but a Nursel attacked her again, rendering her unconscious. When she awoke, she found herself trapped in a Nursel nest encased in a cocoon. Struggling with immense pain, she managed to free herself from the cocoon and saw piles of bones and the cocooned bodies of Marshall and Dash. Arthenes painfully picked up Marshall's fallen bag, which contained a flashlight, an oxygen canister, and some bullets. Using the flashlight, she navigated through the spiderweb-covered tunnels, freeing Lincoln along the way. She told him she was experiencing sharp chest pain, but supported him as they tried to escape. Suddenly, her flashlight died, and a Nursel appeared in front of them. Using a makeshift torch, Arthenes tried to ward it off. At the same time, Lincoln's pain intensified. When he tore open his shirt, they discovered eggs growing on his wound. A Nursel attacked, but Arthenes doused the torch with oxygen, setting the entire nest ablaze. Just as she was about to escape, a Nursal grabbed her leg and pulled her back. Arthenes threw bullets into the fire, causing an explosion that killed the creature. Finally, she managed to escape the nest unharmed. By now it was morning, and the sunlight kept the Nursels from pursuing her. Despite surviving, she felt as though thousands of insects were crawling on her skin, driving her to scratch herself obsessively. On the ground, she found a bullet, extracted its gunpowder, and applied it to her leg wound. Using 2 stones, she sparked a fire, cauterizing the wound to stop the infection. Afterward, Arthenes climbed a hill to survey the area and plan her next move.
She arrived, but all she could see was the desert and that dark tornado. Perhaps this tornado could take her home, but before that, she thought of checking if the path was clear. She picked up a stone and threw it into the sand, which awakened the Diablos with a loud roar. However, when it didn't see Earthmise, it went back. Meanwhile, Earthmise was wandering in a rocky area, and the hunter was secretly following her from a distance. After a while, Earthmise found a broken ship and thought that there might be water, but the container was filled only with sand. She continued exploring the rest of the ship when suddenly the hunter jumped from behind and put a knife to her throat. But Earthmise was no novice. She fought back. Soon, a fierce battle began between the two, and neither was giving in easily. Suddenly, Earthmise drove the hunter's own knife into his shoulder, but he still overpowered her and won the fight. He then tied her hands and led her to his hidden cave. He urged Earthmise to walk fast, as the Nursia creatures would attack them at night. But Earthmise fell to the ground and slyly picked up a shard of glass. Eventually, they reached the hunter's cave, where he drank water and ate moss growing on the rocks, but gave nothing to Earthmise. When she tried to speak, he silenced her because the Nursia were lurking outside. Later, the hunter made a special herbal ointment for his shoulder wound and then worshipped 2 small statues. Meanwhile, Earthmise pretended to sleep but was secretly cutting the ropes on her hands with the glass shard. The next morning, the hunter went outside to check the situation, but when he returned, he found that Earthmise was gone. At that moment, Earthmise attacked him from behind and tied him up. She then drank water from the hunter's bowl, but he knocked it over with his foot to stop her from drinking. Since they didn't understand each other's language, arguing was pointless. In her anger, Earthmise broke the statues, and this enraged the hunter, who pounced on her, leading to another intense fight. They fought their way out of the cave, and suddenly the hunter tumbled into a Nursia nest. Just in time, Earthmise extended her hand and saved him. She pulled him up and cut his ropes, showing him that she wasn't his enemy. She then gave the hunter a piece of chocolate, which he enjoyed. In return, the hunter gave her some water from his pouch. The two continued walking until they reached the edge of a mountainous area. They managed to communicate that they needed to reach the tornado, but on the way, they would have to face the Diablos. Earthmise suggested returning to the military base for weapons, but the hunter somehow explained that guns wouldn't help against these creatures. He proposed that if they could kill a Nursia and extract its venom, they could use it to defeat the Diablos. Earthmise agreed to the plan and volunteered to become bait for the Nursia so the hunter could collect its venom. As soon as the sun set, she went to the rocky area and started singing to attract a Nursia. The plan worked, and when one appeared, Earthmise ran towards the trap they had set. The Nurseye's foot got caught in a rope, and the hunter leaped from above, slicing its head in two with his heavy sword. They then cut off its stinger to extract the venom. They took off and fled before the other Nurselage could arrive. They returned to their cave, where the hunter told Earthmise that the statues she had broken were of his deceased parents. The next day, they began executing their plan. They attached the Nursel's stinger to the tip of an arrow and set a trap in the broken ship. The hunter gave Earthmise some weapons, one of which was a powerful hook, and along with it, 2 retractable blades. First, they threw a wooden vessel straight into the desert, which woke Diablos from its slumber in a rage. Earthmise and the hunter grabbed their weapons and ran, with Diablos quickly chasing after them. Suddenly, Diablos disappeared into the sand, forcing them to stop. Earthmise decided to present herself as bait to Diablos while the hunter ran to grab his weapons. As he ran, his parents' statues fell. When the hunter stopped to pick them up, Diablos suddenly emerged from the sand and attacked him. Without wasting time, the hunter fired the poisoned arrow, which struck Diablos right in the eye. This enraged Diablos, who charged toward the hunter to finish him off, but Earthmise distracted it by firing her machine gun from behind. Though the poison was making Diablos' vision blurry, the bullets didn't harm it. Diablos charged at Earthmise and threw her vehicle far away. Earthmise barely managed to get out of the vehicle, but Diablos was hot on her trail again. Seizing the opportunity, the hunter jumped onto its head and stabbed his sword into it. Unfortunately, the sword didn't go in deep enough, and Diablos shook its head, throwing the hunter onto a nearby vehicle. Still, Earthmise didn't give up. She hooked her grappling hook into Diablos' head, and using the rope, flew straight onto its head. Then, she pushed her swords deeper into its skull, finally killing Diablos. Meanwhile, the hunter was still unconscious. Earthmise gathered all the necessary supplies from nearby vehicles and cut a piece of Diablos' skin, laying the hunter on it. She hoisted him onto her shoulders and carried him forward. After walking for a few hours, the storm picked up, so Earthmise ingeniously built a tent using her supplies. She used the emergency army kit to keep the hunter's heart beating. When the storm passed, they were completely buried in the sand, but the tent had saved their lives, allowing them to safely dig their way out. They continued walking for a long time and finally reached an oasis. In this area lived a large creature called Apsaros, but the hunter assured Earthmise that Apsaros wouldn't harm them. As Earthmise approached the water to drink, a monster called Cephalos suddenly attacked her. The hunter swiftly split it in two with a quick strike of his sword. Later, they cooked and ate the monster. After dinner, night fell, but suddenly a fire broke out in the oasis, which frightened them. A strange creature had attacked, and it was the largest and most terrifying monster they had ever seen. It was called Rathalos, a dragon-like beast that breathed fire from its mouth. A panicked herd of Apsaros ran toward them to escape Rathalos. The hunter hid to avoid being trampled, but Earthmise twisted her ankle and fell to the ground. She thought she would be crushed under the Apsaros, but suddenly a man appeared before her. This man's name was Admiral, and he became part of their story. At the beginning, he used his fire-breathing sword to keep the Apsaros away from Earthmise. At that moment, Earthmise also stood tall, just like the Admiral, and ignited her blades with fire. Meanwhile, the hunter reached the top of a hill, but as the herd of Apsaros rushed toward him from behind, he was about to fall. Just in time, the handler swung in on a rope and saved him from falling. After all the Apsaros had passed, Earthmise thanked the Admiral, who replied in English. Earthmise was shocked to hear this, and then the Admiral knocked her out with a single punch. When she woke up, she found herself imprisoned inside a cage on a ship, with the Admiral watching over her. The hunter, seeing her in captivity, was deeply upset but could do nothing at the time. After the hunter left, Earthmise noticed a lock beneath her feet, so she used a bench to break it open and unlocked the door. She then made her way to the kitchen. As she tried to steal a knife, she was startled by the chef, Palico, who looked like a cat. He didn't let Earthmise take anything. At that moment, the hunter arrived and gave her the good news that she was free. The hunter then took Earthmiz to the admiral, who unlocked her handcuffs and apologized for the misunderstanding. It turned out that the admiral had encountered people from Earth before and knew what they had done to their planet. That's also how he learned their language. The admiral explained that they had reached another world, and the reason for all this was the sky tower located at the top of a mountain surrounded by the black whirlwind. He believed it was built by an ancient civilization, far more advanced than their own. The people of that civilization used to travel between worlds, but they likely destroyed themselves for some reason. The admiral suspected that Earth might be connected to this somehow. Their mission now was to reach the tower, but Rathalos stood in their way as a dangerous obstacle. The admiral said that if Earthmise helped them defeat Rathalos, they would do everything they could to send her home. Hearing this, Earthmiz agreed to help them. The next morning, the entire team set out toward the mountain. After hours of a difficult climb, they finally reached the tower. The sky tower stood on lava, and the admiral thought that might be its source of power. As they moved toward the tower, they found shards of glass, meaning Rathalos was nearby. The admiral told everyone that just before Rathalos breathes fire, its strength is at its lowest because all its energy is focused on producing the fire. The entire team split into different groups, preparing to face Rathalos. Suddenly, Rathalos breathed fire, incinerating some of their soldiers, and then standing right in the middle of their path to the tower. The admiral charged to attack, followed by Earthmise and the hunter with their weapons. Their other comrades tried to help, but Rathalos threw them all aside. At that moment, strange symbols around the tower began to glow. The three of them launched several attacks on Rathalos, but it wasn't enough to defeat the monster. Earthmise, however, returned to Earth through the portal this night, and when she woke up, an army rescue team had arrived to save her. They placed Earthmise on a stretcher, loaded her onto their plane, and took off. But they didn't get far because they were suddenly caught in the black whirlwind, and Rathalos followed them to Earth. It destroyed the plane completely and then chased after the other vehicles. The continuous gunfire from the soldiers had no effect on it, and Rathalos breathed fire, incinerating them all. Meanwhile, Earthmise barely escaped from the plane with her life. As she did, an idea came to her. She took torches from the plane and ran towards Rathalos. She used her hook to latch onto its wing, and once she had flown up to its wing, she sliced it with her knife. Seeing this, Rathalos became enraged and was about to breathe fire at Earthmiz. Just then, she lit one of the torches, burning her hand badly in the process. Without hesitation, she threw the torch directly at Rathalos. But even that wasn't enough to kill Rathalos. It was about to finish Earthmise when, at the last moment, the hunter arrived and fired several powerful arrows at it. One arrow pierced through an existing wound and went deep into Rathalos's body, causing a massive explosion inside. The creature fell to the ground, defeated. The hunter told Earthmise that they had come to stop Rathalos from destroying Earth. Meanwhile, another portal from the Sky Tower had opened, and a new monster named Gormagala stood at its entrance. Earthmiz, the hunter, and the admiral decided to return to the other world and destroy the tower once and for all, to end this cycle of monsters coming through. Together, Earthmiz, the hunter, and the admiral attacked the monster, sending it back through the portal. They followed it into the other world, determined to destroy it and end the threat. At the end of the story, we saw a mysterious figure watching everything unfold from the top of the tower. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.